As we've heard earlier, Annastacia Palaszczuk is demanding the Morrison government extend JobKeeper payments and provide extra funding for hotel quarantine to help the Queensland tourism sector.
Perhaps rather than Josh Frydenberg, our name-calling, perhaps he could go up there and listen firsthand as well. I am merely communicating what people are saying to me. They are concerned that they are going to fall off a cliff.
Joining me now to discuss this and more, the CEO of the Queensland Tourism and Industry Council, David Geschwin from Brisbane, and from Cairns, beautiful Cairns, owner of the Queen's Court Hotel, Zac Sarnecki. Daniel, I'll start with you if I can. Quite a lot of talk today about Queensland, the assistance it's now demanding. A bit of a rough reaction elsewhere in the country. Just to set us up, in dollar terms and in jobs, if you know that sort of data, do we know how much the border closures in Queensland have cost your tourism industry?
Well, the COVID disruption in general has cost us massively, billions of dollars, of course. The international border closures, before we talk about the state borders, the international border closures has cost Queensland at least $7 billion in 2020. The state border closures, sporadic disruption, not just for Queensland, but other states that have restricted travel, that has probably left another $5 billion out of the pockets of Queensland businesses over 2020. So it is a massive impact that we're suffering from here. The recovery is different for each business, but certainly there are plenty of businesses that still suffer from the international border closure.
Yeah, well, the international border closures, Zac, you know, everybody's facing those right around the country, and other nations are, you know, are dealing with them as well. But on the issue of the state border closures, I made the point at the top of the show, I really wanted to go interstate at Christmas, and we weren't locked out of going to Queensland, but I wasn't sure what would happen, how capricious the premiers might be, locking borders up there or back down here in Victoria when I wanted to come home. So I stayed put. I think a lot of people were like that. What's it been like for you? I've spoken to you a number of times last year. How's it been in the last 6 months as we sort of have come out of the worst of COVID, but we've had these border closures making things almost as bad as the lockdowns?
Yeah, absolutely, Peter. It's been very, very up and down. The biggest problem that we've had is the border closures. So we had a lot of cancellations in late December because, once again, when the Queensland borders were slammed shut, people would call and they'd simply say to us, look, we're really happy to rebook. The only problem is this time round, we're not going to rebook. We're actually going to ask for a refund and we're going to cancel our trip because we just don't trust your Premier. We could get stuck in Queensland. We could get stuck somewhere along the way. We just don't know what's going to happen to us. So we want to come up for a relaxing holiday to Queensland, but you're just not letting us. So the problem that we've got over here is that we need Australians to travel. And for the most part, I think most people do want to travel. They want to leave their own couches and their own backyards and get out there and get some sanity back in their lives and see a little bit of this country. But they can't. They can't. I mean, the premiers are their own worst enemies. So it's you know, I agree that we need some sort of additional help up here, but it's a bit rich for the Premier to go back to Scott Morrison and say, hey, buddy, it's all your fault, when she's the one that's created this disaster in the first place. It did not need to be this difficult, ever.
Daniel, we can see in other economic data, people are out there spending on retail. Retail's up, strong Christmas period for a lot of retailers. We've certainly got plenty of improvement in the housing market. We're technically still in a recession, but it certainly doesn't feel like that if you talk to real estate agents. So there's no shortage of Australians willing to open their pocket. They're just not prepared to spend, you know, big dollars to take a family up to Queensland. You're talking probably, you know, $2,000 on airfares, then all the accommodation, and risk losing that with border closures that they can't anticipate. I want to know, have you been heard by government, not about more money, but about can we get more order to border arrangements?
Well, we're certainly urging that approach, both here in Queensland, but I know that our counterparts do that in other states, and we do it to the federal government. This should not be a political argument. This has to be clearly managed as a health issue, that we accept that, and we think the evidence, as it mounts and as the knowledge increases, we should be able to have a consistent approach to the next case, to the next outbreak, so we don't have such a diversity of approaches to this. We are still, at the moment, WA is effectively closed to many of us, us. Other states have different restrictions. We have a consistent system that we need to put in place. So, as Zac says, we have confidence back in the consumer market across the country to travel, to make plans and invest money in a booking.
Zac, if you could send the Premier a message tonight, what would you tell her?
Look, consistency, cut the politics. I think we're all sick of it. I think we're sick of the little sound bites. Up here in Queensland, you can fly up here, you can sit around and sympathise with us all you like, but the reality of it is you know you created the problem. We all know you created the problem. So how about you just get together with your other premiers, come up with a framework to make sure that there is some sort of confidence in the market, so people can once again book, can come and can once again come up. Stop blaming other people. Look at yourself in the mirror. You created this mess. How about you get off your ass and fix it?
Well, there you go. Spoken like a Queenslander. Still one of the most beautiful states in the country, no doubt about that, despite the leadership. All right, gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. Have a great weekend.